And today we are looking at the new Quad Cortex update. It's finally here after, I don't know how many months, how much anticipation. This update seems like it took forever to come, but it's finally here, and this is probably the biggest and best update that Neural has put out since the Quad Cortex has come out. Now, obviously, the elephant in the room. Everybody is a little bit upset that it took so long, and there's been such a weird line of communication between Neural and us about when this is coming, and they were pretty clear about what's going to be in it, but there's also a ton of promises that are still yet to be fulfilled on. So a lot of people are upset about that, but a lot of people are also defensive. And there's like a whole mixed bag in the community right now. People are either super happy with their unit as is and don't really care if there's an update, and they're just like, oh, well, if an update happens, great. And then there's the other people that are like burning the place down with pitchforks, demanding that the update come immediately because they were sold a unit that could do XYZ and this can't yet do it. And there's like this constant fighting going on. And can't we just all get along? But at least we are taking steps in the right direction towards everybody being happy. So before we even get into this, I just wanted to tell you that this is not going to be a preset build video. There's not going to be any tones or anything like that because this is mainly a UI overhaul type of update. So I'm just going to overview all of the things that I'm really excited about. And then in future videos, I'm going to be doing different builds with the new features of the update. There's a ton of new stuff in here. I could not possibly cover it all in one video. But let me know in the comments what devices and what sounds you're looking to hear that are new to this update, and I'll see if I can put together a video making a preset with them. I plan on making one with a bunch of the new stuff, but a lot of this is user interface type of stuff that's going to benefit the gigging musician as well as the studio musician or even just the casual musician. A lot of cool stuff going on here. Let's get into it. Let's talk about this update and what's in it. First off, the thing I'm most excited about is the introduction of hybrid mode. For those that don't know what hybrid mode is, that means that on each row of foot switches, we're going to be able to assign something. So I'm indifferent about this because coming from other modelers or having other modelers being really competent with all of these, this hybrid mode is kind of still halfway there. And I don't want to start off on a negative because there's a lot of great stuff in this update, but this hybrid mode we need to talk about. So I can go to right there to modes configuration, and now I can drag one on top of another. So if I have stomps and scenes, and when you swipe up, you see now I have my scenes are on the bottom, and I also have bypass assignments set to the foot switches. So you see up here, I have stomp and scene mode, and you see the hybrid mode. That's very important that you see that you're in hybrid mode. So this opens up a ton of flexibility. You're no longer tied to doing one specific thing, either stomps or presets, and like being able to mix and match is the best thing that you could ever have. You can customize your layout now, your floorboard, the way that you want. You can't fully do it yet, but I hope that that comes soon where you can just have an empty canvas and put whatever block you want to whatever foot switch you want. At the end of the day, that's going to be the ultimate flexibility. But for right now, it's a step in the right direction. I'm happy with the ability to even do this, but I would say that if 10 being perfect, we're at like it's a 7 out of 10 as far as 7 out of 10 is my rating for the hybrid mode that's been added. Now, while we're in hybrid mode, something that happened in a previous firmware was the way that you bypass blocks when it comes to having scenes. So if you were in your scene mode and then you switched to stomp mode, made a bypass assignment, and then went back to scene mode, previously it forced your pedal to stay on. So you would have to go then back to pedal mode, turn that off, and then go to scene mode. Whereas now, if you hit the three dots at the top, you can scroll down to your settings, and then you have right here, you just scroll down to your device options. Sorry, I'm on here. Device options, scroll down, and we have these three right here we're going to talk about right now, but you have scene bypass state behavior. And on here, you have three options. So this is going to control what happens to your bypass assignments when scenes are changed. So first off, you have always overwrite the bypass state, which is your default option. Then you have do not overwrite bypass state when changing bypass state via foot switches and stomp mode, including hybrid stomp mode or MIDI. Changes made with the touchscreen will be saved. And then there's do not overwrite bypass state when changing bypass state at any method by any method. So I am going to be choosing do not overwrite bypass state when changing bypass state by any method, because if I'm in my gig view here and I turn this off, I would like it to stay off until I put that scene back on. So when you revert back to the scene, it'll be as if nothing happened. So this is a good way, and if you're going to be using a hybrid mode, this is kind of an important thing, where if you're in a scene in particular and you want to bypass something, you can bypass it, but when you return to that scene, it'll be back on. And to me, that's why you design your scenes. So I design my scenes to be stepped on and be their sound, and that's it. So that always got confusing to me, being able to, it got confusing to me having the bypass assignment stick through scenes, and I don't like that at all. So I'm glad we have the ability to change that. That's definitely a huge plus for me personally. And now, like I said, just be really conscious of your scenes. If you make your scenes exactly the way you want it, these bypass assignments won't affect you. And while we're on here, let's just take a look at what happens here. And we're in always overwrite bypass state. So now if I'm here and I bypass that, it's now just bypassed for good, which in my opinion is no good because it's a scene. If I dialed in a scene to be a certain way, I want that to stay the way it's supposed to be. So that is definitely out for me. I'll never be using that. The other option of do not overwrite the bypass state when changing bypass state via foot switches, but the touchscreen will be saved. So if I do this again here, turn all these on, switch to my scenes, everything goes back to normal for my scenes. Say I make the change from here, and now the Brit Blues is always bypassed. So if you make something on the touchscreen, that will reflect throughout, which if you're still editing things is a good thing, is a good plan. Otherwise, you have to go to the grid and do it and set that up for your scenes as if you're starting from scratch almost. But this is still, I could see where this is good. I would still probably opt for the other one, but it's nice knowing that you can have this option also where if you do the touchscreen, it'll hold and it'll stick that change versus being locked into it one way or another. But again, as I said, I will be using this where it'll never overwrite my scenes. My scenes are untouchable, and that's what that's going to be about. While we're in this menu, let's talk about what else we have in these settings. So when I go to settings, you now have a master volume knob assignment. This is like, this is the type of stuff that I've been wanting and that I've been needing out of the Quad Cortex, because when I tour with my modelers, I don't touch my XLR outs. Those are set. They go to house. I can't touch it. My volume can't change. I can't use a cable and graze it and have the volume suddenly turn off. There is no way that I can affect front of house with the volume knob, which is exactly the way I want it. So I will be taking this off of outputs 1 and 2 because those are going to be my regular XLR outs. And then for like output 3 and 4, those typically go to an FRFR, or I'm doing the send, an effects loop send. So I'm going to turn that off too, because if I'm using an effects loop or a send, I don't want to be able to adjust that volume personally. But outputs 3 and 4 and the headphones are always going to be the way I monitor myself. So I usually use outputs 3 and 4 for floor wedge or like the Line 6 power cab or whatever I'm hearing myself from on stage. And then the earphones are obviously your headphones. Those are the only two things. So if it's a device that I'm trying to hear myself on, then I want the volume knob to control it. But if it's something that's for someone else to control, like front of house, then I want no control over it. So that's why I'm setting my volume knob to be this way. The next setting right above it here, you see global bypass. This is a cool one if you're somebody that sometimes uses their real cabinet or their power amp on stage. Real quickly, you could just globally bypass all the cabinets, so any cabinet that you have in a signal chain won't be active. This is the new IR, by the way. The new IR logo looks like this. But you can just go through here and turn off your cabinet and your IRs across all your rows. So if, say, you want to set yourself up where sometimes you use an amp, sometimes you use direct, you could set up row 4, for example, with your cabinets, and then in this menu, you can either select to bypass those or enable them depending on what your setup is that day. Me personally, I'm not going to be using these. I almost always go XLR direct, so I'll have my cabinets on at all times. and going into a flat speaker. Another great plus that I think is necessary is the global EQ. Global EQ is huge when it comes to modelers because there are times where you make your presets at home when they sound great and you're like, man, I got this dialed in. You got your headphones, your studio monitors, everything you have is dialed in. You show up to a venue or a sound check and all of a sudden it's like, holy crap, what the hell did I do? And you kind of need this little backup plan or this fail safe where the global EQ will affect all of your presets. Because if you make your presets too dark or too bright, then most likely all of your presets are going to be too dark and too bright. And then you can use your global EQ now to tailor your sound to the room that you're in to make it sound best at that particular venue through that particular PA speaker. And here you got a 5-band parametric. You can do all your normal things. You can set this all different ways. You can make this your low pass filter. This would probably be the one that I use most is the low pass filter, because typically the only problems I ever have is some rooms will be really, really bright and I'll just need to kind of just take a high cut and just drop it through and cut out any of that unwanted high end in the particular room. You can do the same with the low end. If you want to go to a high pass filter, you can change your low end, just kind of narrow your bandwidth and help you stick out for an engineer to get your sound the way you want it. So the next thing that I'm really excited about is the new directory. And again, it's a work in progress. I won't say that it's perfect yet. I will say that the directory system is exponentially better than it was because, first of all, you could do this now. Oh my God, how satisfying this is after the old way. And if you happen to be in the future right now and you already have your Quad Cortex, we used to have to select the folder and we could only scroll the folder, whereas now we can scroll everything on this right side. And I definitely complained about this in previous videos where I hated that you couldn't scroll from the right, but now we can. That's a really big plus. Also, currently the update just dropped a few minutes ago. The downloads folder is going to be something that replaces the starring system. So thankfully that whole starring system's gone. You're going to be able to go on the app. I can't do it right now because the app is still updating. Plus I'm filming the Quad Cortex on my phone here. The new update is going to allow you to just go on the app, find something you like. You're going to be able to hit the download button and it's automatically going to be in this downloads folder for you to just swipe through, and then you could just hit a button and it's going to take it right into your captures. All really good stuff. Speaking of captures, we finally have the ability to differentiate the captures from one another. So for example, on this is a factory preset MX Classic OD, you see that the icon is a pedal. And when you're going to create a new capture, when you go to create a new capture or you make a new capture, you're now able to put in metadata where you see like this one, it has the capture logo in the bottom left-hand corner, and this is just an amp with no cab. You can also sort now. You can go by preferred instrument, and that'll take you through all of the guitar stuff or whatever the preferred instrument is on the capture. So this will be something that's more apparent in the app when you're going and cycling through the app. I'm assuming you're going to be able to see the different icons before you hit the download button, and then when you download them into your Quad Cortex, that's what they're going to look like. It's hard to do this now because I don't have the app yet because it's not available. This is another thing that I'm just going to kind of glance over and explain here. They updated a bunch of old models. So a few of the models in the Quad Cortex got a facelift, and you're able to version those. So you'll see on the literature it says device versioning. And what device versioning is, you'll be able to change the version of your amp. For example, this, the Diesel H4, when you scroll, you could see that this will say model update available, which means that if you have an old preset that you use the amp model on, you'll be able to update that to the newest version of that amp. And you'll also be able to change it to the legacy version. So if you happen to know you like an amp model from the previous firmware, you can just hit change to legacy version. This isn't available on every single amp model, but some of the ones that they updated, you're able to go back to the one if you previously liked it on the old firmware. Also, another thing, when you go to your new Neural Capture now, they changed everything to be so much better that now your instrument's going to go into instrument 1, which it should have been from day 1, instead of having to go, you used to have to go into return 2 or return 1 and then have the device go into the input. And then when you got to your preset, you'd have to switch them back so that you can hear it. It was such an annoying process. I'm so glad that they rearranged the capture process so that now your guitar or your instrument is always going to be going into the input. That's definitely a huge win for me personally. Just scrolling my notes here, there again, you can sort now by preferred instrument. You can also sort by gain level, which is cool. So the Quad Cortex is going to set gain for you based on the captures that you're using. It'll read the capture and tell you how much gain there is, so you can sort by gain. Another interesting, cool thing for the directory. Now we also have the search here, where it'll take up the whole screen, and the search has been completely overhauled. It now spans the entire screen. Recently searched terms are displayed beneath the text, so eventually we're going to see as you search for things. So if you have a particular capture you like, preset that you like, you could just type it in here. So if I were to type in Jessica Lynn, you'll see that my suggestions come up, and those are my Jessica Lynn presets, and I could just get there from searching, instead of having to page through and cycle to it. Another thing you can do is you can create up to 5 cloud backups. Previously, you were only able to do 1. 893 new neural captures have been added. We got 3 new guitar amplifiers. Wow, that's a lot of captures that were added. That's a whole big list. And as far as things that I'm like really excited about, I think that about does it. I'm sure as I dive into this even more, I'm gonna find more stuff that I like and maybe some other things that I dislike. But overall, I think that we're in the right direction. Things are getting better for the Quad Cortex, which is always good. So let me know what you guys think of the update and fight it out in the comments, whether you're one of those people who are in support and just happy to get new updates, or if you're one of the people trying to burn the place down because you want what was promised on day 1. Let me know which camp you're in. And if you made it this far, thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one where we will make some presets with this stuff.